Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Overmark Podcast. It's our new channel that talks about wrestling and whatever we like to talk about. My name's TJ,
I'm Dave.
and we're co host of this podcast that you're tuning into this evening. Um, basically, um, me, TJ, I'm just a lifelong wrestling fan. I've been watching probably since I've been about 4 years old. I'm 36 now. If my math checks out, what's that, about 32 years?
That's
Um,
a pretty long time.
yeah. Uh, you know, I, there's been times where I've checked out and other times where it's dominated large chunks of my life, but, overall it's been a pretty big thing in my life. What about you?
I mean, pretty much the same. About 4 years old. I think I started watching it 1986, 87, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, so I got to really start watching it in the golden era, and then we
You
went
see, I
through
never
the
experienced
new
that.
generation. Man, it was pretty cool. Like obviously it rules to go back and watch, but when you know how it is. I mean, you
Yeah.
were a young kid when you were like 4 or 5 years old, and you're seeing all these larger than life characters. Especially then, it was just like they were like action figures.
Yeah, it's never the same unless you're kind of living in the era. That's why, like, when you try to explain like living in the Attitude Era to people now, it's not something that they can really understand. They just look at the product, and because like it's not 100% polished like what we're watching today, they it's something that they don't look at like a good product. When in reality, it's like back then, nothing comes close.
Right, they had an entire roster of Hall of Fame, dude. Like even your mid card guys were Hall of Famers. So it's like,
And the guys that weren't mid card, the lower level guys, like somebody like Spike Dudley, they're like insanely entertaining. They always found a spot for him on the show because, like, how could you not, right?
right? They're talented.
Yeah, but anyways,
Not that today's guys aren't. We're not crapping on today's product or
yeah,
anything like that.
we're just hyping up the back in the day.
Exactly.
But
Where we
anyways,
give people the wrong impression. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
go on.
you're good. Um, but yeah, like I said, we're just both lifelong wrestling fans, and kind of the reason why we're starting this podcast is just we talk about wrestling all the time. I mean, me and Dave are in here in our Discord, and we've probably been talking about wrestling almost every day for how many years now? Like 4 years,
Like
five.
4 or 5 years. Yes, basically since like 2019, 2020, we just been in Discord every day. We're talking something about wrestling, joking about wrestling, hitting wrestling soundboards. Like we've got just a lot of different stuff that we're talking about or doing in respects to wrestling daily. So this felt like the next logical progression for the two of us, just to kind of record our thoughts and get them out there and see if people think that we're idiots or not.
I mean, they're probably going to think that either way. We could come in here being like talking about rocket appliances, and they'd probably think that we're idiots, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, you know, we both watch both products. Dave isn't watching AEW as much as I am these days, but I'm watching everything but NXT. I'm enjoying Raw. AEW's rough around the edges. I have aspect that I enjoy. Anything with MJF's good. Tony Storm's great. But we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Um, you know, check out our Twitter. Check out our YouTube that you're looking at right now. We're going to try to get this on a whole bunch of other platforms, but for now, those are the two areas that you can check us out. Um, we're going to jump right back into kind of what we were just highlighting a little bit, which was what AEW and WWE are looking like right now. Um, you know, I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier before we hopped on here, but WWE is pretty good right now. They're doing the best stuff they've done since about '99, right?
Definitely. It's hard to say anything other than that. They just finally got to where they need to be after it felt like, there was a quite a lull probably from like the 2010s until about the time that AEW started. And, thankfully for us wrestling fans, competition always makes them do better, and that's exactly what they did.
I mean, they're
It
not
just took
lying.
them a minute.
Like, when you're a kid, you hear that when they were talking about WCW and WWE, especially when WCW went away. Everybody's like, "This isn't good. Competition makes this better," and It's definitely true. You notice WWE start declining in quality once WCW went away.
Yeah. One of the things that about the early 2000s WWE product is it actually was still good.
Yeah,
It just had an unfortunate task of having to follow
the best
the
period
Attitude
ever.
Era was the most successful period ever in wrestling at that point.
So I want to jump back for a second. Why do you think WWE is doing as hot as it is right now? Besides competition, what are some of the changes that you think are why this happened?
Well, I mean, Triple H taking over the creative and Vince being gone.
Yeah, that's
I feel
that's
like Triple H does a little bit more. I don't want to
he
say that he
listens.
books for the fans,
Yeah, but he does
but
listen.
yeah, his ears are open. He's like actually trying to do the thing to make the show as entertaining for as many people as possible. And we've talked about this before. Vince just booked for himself. Like,
Yeah,
oh, that's a great idea, pal. I like that. This is what I came up with it. I'm doing it.
genital
So
jokes,
what's
fart,
poop?
poop, midgets, pies, shaving, you name it. But that was tame. In the Attitude Era, he was like making out with the chicks and just, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, what a
Uh,
disgusting guy, man.
the affair angle with Trish
Trish,
Stratus,
yeah.
where Linda McMahon was all catatonic in the
One of,
wheelchair and
hey,
everything.
her getting up out of that wheelchair was probably one of the biggest pops that I have ever heard in my life, man. You remember that?
Um, yeah, and
It
it's
was at
weird
WrestleMania,
that
right?
Linda McMahon is getting that kind of. Yeah, she got up
What
and
was it,
delivered
Shane
the
versus
old slap.
Vince?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. But did Trish bring her out, or how'd she get out there? I think it was
I
Trish,
can't
right? And then she
recall.
and then she turned her back on Vince, from what I remember.
Something like that. Maybe that'll be one of the things we'll deep dive for one of the episodes at some point.
Yeah, that was a good one, and that pop's amazing. Maybe one day we'll do like watch along on matches or something like that once we got enough
I
people
think
in
that'd be
here.
pretty cool.
Yeah, but anyways, like yeah, um, and then what's hot and what's not here? Man, it's this is more the same. I feel like everything in WWE, if you're going by crowd reactions, hot right now.
It's almost like it's one of those like they have to actually try to mess this up at this point. They're doing so well.
Yeah, like this won't last forever, and it will fade. But it's like Cody's the face that they've been looking for since Stone Cold and The Rock have left. Like um, every face that they of the I don't know what I'm jumbling up on. Every face of the company uh, since them hasn't worked out. I mean, not to say that they haven't worked out, but I mean, Cena and Reigns both were getting cheers and boos. Reigns at one point
Right?
was
It was
just getting nothing but boos.
like a split reaction type of deal. Whereas with Cody, he's just over with the fans. Like you don't really hear people booing it. I'm sure that somewhere in the crowd there are people that are booing him, but it's
Oh
being
yeah,
entirely drowned out by the rest of the folks that are cheering him.
you're never gonna please everybody. But
No,
there was people that were booing Hulk Hogan when everybody was cheering him, and same with Stone Cold. Just when you got everybody else going nuts for him, you don't really notice those people.
yeah. I mean, I find it hard to believe people would have been booing Stone Cold at
Yeah.
his height. But, I'm sure that there's people that are out there that maybe they weren't a fan of him for whatever the profanity, the middle fingers, all of that stuff. Maybe they were more into traditional values and things of that nature, but that just was a different time in wrestling.
What isn't working in in WC or WWE right now?
Man, that's actually a pretty tough question.
Because everybody gets good reactions, but that doesn't mean everything's good, right? Like, I'm not crazy about Bianca, but I mean, she can wrestle in the ring. She just has trouble talking. Charlotte, I think maybe that's something that isn't working, but within the show and how it works, I think that she's getting the reaction they want, and they won't have a problem acting like it's nuclear heat, right?
Right. She is getting the booze and everything that the heels want to get. But I feel like, and I was talking to some of the guys about this last night when you and I were watching SmackDown, is it feels like she has go away heat, like X-Pac style heat.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
People just don't want to see her anymore. I don't know why exactly. I don't know where the disconnect happened. That might have been when I was quote unquote lapsed, and I was kind of watching the stuff on fast forward a little bit more. But she definitely isn't in the position with the fans that she was a few years back,
Well, I think some of it's like that Cena stuff too. Like, when's the last time she's changed her character?
right? Overexposure to the same thing. Well, I
Fans
mean,
get,
she changed. I'm about to be negative, and I'm sorry if this offends people, but I mean, she changes her face more than she changes her character.
yeah, it's she. I understand that women age, and we all have a fear of getting older, you know. But man, she's done some damage to herself that's irreparable. Um,
And don't get us
she would
wrong,
have
we're
looked good
not prizes
natural.
ourselves.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, for
no,
sure.
she would have looked good natural. Like she's never been like the best looking woman in the world, but I mean, when you compare her to your average woman out there, I mean, she's not bad looking at all. You know, she do for plenty of people out there, and a lot of people will be lucky to have her body mixed with her natural face.
Yeah,
When she was younger too, like she looked great. It's just
yeah.
you
Did
know,
you see the thing where her eye kind of got stuck during that one promo?
and it was yeah in her mouth some too. Man,
Yeah,
I, I'm thinking that's why she was gone so long. They were trying to figure that out, and it's
right. She
unfortunate.
might have had, and we don't want to spread unfounded rumors because
No,
we don't know
no.
that that actually happened or anything. We're entirely speculating, like Uncle Dave here.
But she can wrestle, man. She's put on some of the best women's matches they've ever had at WrestleMania, and
Oh,
her
without question.
promos have always kind of been like robotic to some extent. You know, she's not her dad, but she's serviceable. She's definitely one of the best women's wrestlers ever. It's just when somebody gets pushed down your throat so much, it's you know,
Right. Yeah, it could be the Cena effect.
I think so. But put her in the right circumstances and have somebody screw her over, and she could get good reactions again. It just depends who she's working with and all that.
Yeah.
But and like I said, we were talking about AEW, and I think the only thing that's hot in AEW is Tony Storm and the Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah. I mean, the Death Riders. It feels like anytime I go online, most of the comments, in respects to the Death Riders, are just like people are tired of it.
Well,
You know, they
I've
don't
seen it.
like it.
I've seen it all. Every single bit of it. Like I mean that spike spot with the uh, the what is it, piece of wood or a bat with all the nails in
I
it
think it's
was
I think it's like a
ridiculous.
2x4 or it's like a cricket bat.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's what it is actually. But it was terrible. Me and my wife were sitting there watching it. I'm pretty sure that was Dynamite on TV, not even a pay-per-view, and they stick that bat in
right.
his back. But that's beyond the point. They're terrible. But looking at the other parts of the show, I always enjoy MJF, but they've even managed to ruin him somehow. He's not getting the reactions he used to get, but nobody really is. I can't think of anything on that show that I'm really looking forward to. I can't think of any feud that's going to happen in the future that's going to be great. I can't think of any recent all-time moments that have been something that have been like something that I'll remember. Um, yeah,
Well, I mean, you and I've talked about this before. They don't put their big stars together. They have
no.
like they'll have like Osprey out there having a
Who's
competitive match
awesome? I
with
love him. He's great.
yeah, but then he'll have a competitive match with like a job. And I hate to belittle anybody, and I'm not trying to talk that, but he's out there having a competitive match, with a jobber where it's a 16-minute match and the jobber's winning like 8 or 9 minutes of the fucking match.
I forget who
That's
it
not
was last
believable.
time that he did that against, but they did have him against enhancement talent the other day, and it's not good. You don't build talent by having your top guy uh, have these competitive matches. You have the other guy get a couple things in, but you want to just show your talent off. Uh, have them get their stuff in. Have the one guy do one or two things, and if you want to have a competitive match, bring one of your higher mid-level guys out and have them lose to your top guy. That's what they're there for. There's levels to this stuff, and people know that not everybody can be the top guy. But when you have everybody in the ring competing at the same level, it basically means that this guy that you have losing all the time is one good match away from beating your top guy. And when everybody on the card is at that level, and you're not really hyping anything up, it leads to dead crowds, and it just leads to almost everything that you're doing not really working. You can have situations, you could have the exact same show that they're doing right now, but hype it up correctly and have the people tell you why you should care, and you won't have to change anything else. You could even do less in the ring, and you will get more out of what you're doing because you're telling people why they should care. Not to say people are dumb, but it, this is wrestling fans. This is what they've been taught in the U.S. Since I've been watching wrestling. And before, from everything I've read, this has been wrestling in the U.S. forever. When they started coming up with angles back in the day, when they started bringing weapons in, once they realized, oh man, if I screw this hometown guy over, they're gonna want to kill me. And they used to do that. They used to physically come and attack these guys. And they're like, not to say that you want that these days, but if there's no heat, why is anyone there? Does that sound right to you?
That's exactly it. These guys back in the day, I'll use like Memphis and stuff as an example, and I'm going to sound like an old guy here, but like these heels back in the day had heat that was so bad they'd go out to their cars in the parking lot and all of the tires would be slashed, and then they'd be telling the other guys, "Oh, my
If they could
tires
make
got
it to the
slashed."
parking lot.
Right, and then the other guys would be like, "Oh, you got good heat, brother."
Yeah. It's just, it was a part of the deal, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
It,
how many times did Lawler fight dudes in the parking lot on the way out to his car? Like
hey,
a
that's,
lot.
but that's the thing too, back in the day, and when I'm talking back in the day, I'm talking like 70s, 80s, early 80s. Like,
Yeah.
you had to be a tough guy in some of these situations because if you got your ass whipped in the bar, you lost your spot,
Yeah.
you know? Oh,
Yeah.
I can't have
Promoter.
this in the news that my world champion got beat up by Joe Schmo at Lowe's.
Right. You're getting whipped by one of the dudes at the bar, and that's not great for the promotion. So yeah, dudes literally would lose their spots over that kind of stuff.
If somebody was talking shit in a public area about wrestling in front of a wrestler or a group of wrestlers, um, the guy that you were working for would want you to hit that guy in the jaw and go to jail and he'll bail you out. They would rather
Yeah.
that happen than you not defend wrestling. That's how serious these guys were about it. And I don't think that's what we should be doing today, and I'm glad that we're not in that culture anymore. But, there has to be some kind of middle ground where somebody like MJF today lives in that character. You know,
Yeah.
um, that's what we need.
He's one of the last guys that I believe like tries to live his gimmick.
Yeah,
Obviously he's not in character the entire time. He's not doing the Undertaker type of deal with it, but more often than not, when you're seeing MJF in these interviews, and I'm not talking about interviews on
signings,
like Dynamite I'm talking about like signings, cons.
yeah,
He's on
Comic
some new show.
Cons. Yep,
He's in character. Like he is MJF that you see on
two
TV.
children.
It's yeah.
He will literally like ruin a kid's day. Um, and it's, I don't know, that's just a part of wrestling, Like you have this character and it's just now for life, MJF has heat with this guy and his family. And
Right.
probably most people at that con. Or maybe not. Smart fans these days might dig that, you know?
Yeah, um smart fans will always cheer that kind of stuff. And there are definitely more smart fans now than probably ever, just because of, there's a lot more transparency in what goes on in the wrestling business now versus back in the day. And then you just have a lot of people that are invested in trying to seek out information as to what's going on, because sometimes backstage is more interesting than what's going on the TV. It
Yeah,
just
I
is
mean,
what it is.
Undertaker came out and said that recently in one of his shows or interviews. He was doing something, and I mean, you saw that, right? He literally said, "Yeah, backstage is everybody's more interested in that than what's going on in the ring."
He did
Definitely
say
true.
that,
Yeah,
and that can be construed as a knock on the modern wrestling product in a way, but also not, because once people started learning about this backstage stuff, I feel like in the 90s, a lot more backstage stuff started coming out than previously, and people just kind of were like, "Wow, these guys are dicks to each other behind the curtain too," and
yeah.
there's a lot more. At the time, some of the stuff that was happening backstage was just more interesting